What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Mark Bader, and David Bray is out on his way to America's Cup, and we've got one of the newest employees of Flow Sports, Track Wrestling's Shane Sparks, in the house. Shane, welcome.
Long time no see, Mark. I feel like this is, deja vu from 10 years ago.
This is wild, yeah. We're getting the band back together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Glad to have you here.
Yeah, been a great time.
Yeah, and you got you and the rest of the Track Wrestling crew here, kind of orientation, whatever you want to call it, today and yesterday and the rest of this week. So excited to that, and we can talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show. But I want to bring on our guest for today. It is 2019 World Team member Kayla Miracle. Kayla, how are you this morning?
I am great. How about you guys?
I'm doing great. And obviously it's Captain's Cup week, right? And obviously America's Cup, I think, starts tomorrow. But this Saturday and Sunday we have the Captain's Cup. The women are putting together a dual tournament. It should be pretty awesome. When did you first hear about it, and kind of what were your thoughts about this event? We'll start there.
Terry Steiner, he sent out a group text to us girls that are qualified we're sitting in the final, so we qualified the weights. And he was like, hey, this is an idea. What do you think? And we just kind of had a little group chat going from there with Clarissa Chun and Jessica Medina. And I was excited about it. I think it was a great idea. We need matches. A lot of girls want to wrestle each other. So it was a good opportunity. Plus, win some money. There's a big purse. So
absolutely,
always a good plus.
Yeah. What kind of challenges has it been with not a whole lot of competition? I know you and other people wrestled here and there, and there's some cards and this, that, and the other, but it's hard to get into a tournament where you're getting 4 or 5 matches a day. Talk about like training with not having much to look forward to and what that's been like.
I mean, it's exhausting. It's mentally draining. You kind of fuel your training based on the competition. It's like, all right, I have France coming up in 3 weeks. Like, let's go gung-ho, But when you don't have France to look forward to, you don't have senior nationals to look forward to, it's just training every day. And it's the same thing repetitively. And it's hard to maybe figure out some areas that you need to focus on. So you have to be really smart about getting partners in and doing match days and finding those areas that you need to adjust and you need to work on, and you have to be able to ramp yourself up. We'll do usually match days on every other Friday or something, and I have, some of the toughest girls in the country in my room. I have Forrest Molinari and Allie Reagan, right on either side of my weight class, so I'm kind of lucky, but also a little unlucky sometimes.
Iron sharpens iron. And I guess to that point, talk about the move out to Arizona, and I don't know, does that change much as far as the way you're training? I know Mark Perry's still working with you and training with a lot of the same people, but how much has changed, or what kind of changes, if any, have there been?
I think the biggest change is maybe driving more. I have to drive a little bit further to get to my practice, but I have very specific and tailored strength and conditioning. I'm working with Neuroforce, so that's up in Scottsdale, and then we're training at a club down in Chandler. So a lot of driving, but a lot of specific focus areas for me, and just getting me geared up. But having Perry is great. He was in Iowa. That was awesome. And then rather than having the Brands brothers, which I loved, we have Zeke Jones and Lee Pritz and Frank Molinaro. So a great coaching staff. And same training partners plus a few more. So
awesome.
Kayla, obviously, as you mentioned, you've been around some of the great coaches in the sport. How would you compare and contrast the two coaching styles from both sides?
Ooh, Tom and Terry are intense. They are very intense and buckle down, go hard. And then, Zeke, with the college season starting in COVID, I haven't gotten to experience him as much, but I've worked a lot with Lee Pritz, and he is my dude. I talked to him the other day, actually a couple weeks ago, and I was like, hey, are you going to be, at the time, at Penn State for Olympic trials like that weekend? He's like, yeah, what's up? And I said, are you going to be busy? Can you sit in my corner? And he's like, yeah. So him and Mark Perry, like those are the dudes I want. And then Frank Molinaro, he's powerful, explosive, and then he's in there grinding every single day. He's going with Suriano or Zahid or Forrest, whoever needs a partner, it's like, yo, Frank. And he's like, all right, let's go. And he's just going harder than a lot of us all the time. So it's pretty inspiring.
I don't know if you know this, but I was Lee Pritz's like first pupil. He finished college my first semester of college. So he finished his wrestling in, I guess, 1998. Then that next semester, the first semester of the 98-99 year, when I first came to college, he was finishing college. And then at Christmas, he came in and started coaching. Boy, a ball of fire in a world. This guy, you know, and I'm sure he's toned back. That was 18, 20 years ago or something. He was a madman. And I mean, he's intense and he's, yeah. But
super cool guy, though. I mean, when you think about wrestling and some of the cool guys, Lee Pritz has got the cool factor.
Well, not just the cool factor, like he's got your back, and I loved him, and he, he's, I'm sure, grown and changed a little bit since then too, but he was always, and I'm sure still is, you can call him at midnight, 2 a.m, 4 a.m, 6 a.m, noon, and say, I need a workout, I need a drill. He'll say, yeah, let's go. I'm in. And actually, he did a little, at 2000, he was, trying to get to the Olympic trials and make the Olympics. I came back, I think I was registering that year, and I came back from spring break early to train with him. And it's 8 at night or something. We're the only people in the building, and we're going back and forth. And I hit like a fireman's or something, and he goes, ah! He screams out, jumps back, and I'm like, oh my God, I just tore his knee up, and there's nobody here, and what do we do? And he's like rolling around on the ground. He's like, ah! I'm like, holy shit, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I need an adult. And he like turns over and like on his belly, like a seal, goes out and he goes, all right, let's do parterre. I was like, what? I think we need to get you to the hospital, bro. Like, are you? No, just get on top of me. Just try to, do some guts. I was like, I guess. Okay. So anyways, that's. Yeah.
I had heard a story about Lee once. I think Andy Hamilton told me this. I think it's true. Somebody told me that he was like in a hot tub at Arizona State, and there's a guy in there, big beard, and big guy, and it was James Harden, I believe. And Lee had no idea who it was. I heard that story once with
I don't
him
know
too.
who James Harden is.
Of the it seems like he switches teams. I think now he's on. I think he's in Brooklyn right now.
Is he a basketball?
Brooklyn, Kyrie Irving, and Durant. Yeah. I believe he's on Brooklyn.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Stud basketball player at Arizona State.
Okay.
Great player in the NBA, but most guys would probably recognize him, but Harden was probably just happy with some guy that wasn't drilling him about basketball questions.
Yeah. I'm sure. Back to the Captain's Cup, I know in college, there's dual meets, but I don't think you've been on a World Cup team. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when's the last dual meet you wrestled in? Okay, well, there you go. Okay, then talk about the dual meet style versus an individual tournament and what you like about a dual meet.
I love a dual meet. Some people hate them, but I think the general consensus is that they're awesome. And looking at my team, I actually have 2 girls that I've been on dual teams with. So Coral Sugiyama and Hannah Gladden. I've both been on college teams with them. So that's really awesome. But, World Cup or college or even high school dual teams, it's all the same. You have so much positive energy. You're struggling on the mat. It's late in the second and you need a little bit of extra motivation or whatever. You're not just wrestling for yourself, you're wrestling for your team. You got to do what you got to do. You have to get the job done. And that what your job is stepping on the mat. If you need to just win, if you need to get the bonus points. And I think these girls will know that, and stepping on the mat, they're going to be ready to get the job done against some of these tough competitors. But with the logistics of it, it's a little bit different with the Captain's Cup and World Cup and the scoring. So college, it's strict score. You have 10 weight classes. A pin is 5, tech is 4, decision is 3. And if you lose the match but you score a point and don't get pinned, then you get a team point as well. But with Captain's Cup, there are 6 matches. So if you split 3 and 3, that's when you go to the score and break that down. But if my team wins 4 and they win 2, we win. So.
Yeah. Can you think of an example where you were in a dual meet and maybe you were behind or struggling, you needed something, and you heard your teammates, your bench, saying all those encouraging things, and you were like, man, I gotta suck it up and make this happen. And you did, and maybe it was because the ladies on the side were giving you, what you needed.
My senior year of college was a very perfectly run season. It's like that fairy tale story ending. It's what everyone wants. It's the movie, you know. So we're wrestling at national duels and we're wrestling McKendree. And I remember it might have been the year before or 2 years before we lost to McKendree. We shouldn't have lost. And we did not have a good week of practice that next week. It, it was rough. So we're wrestling them and our lightweights, didn't show up exactly how we needed them. So we're kind of in a hole. But we had myself, Grace Bullen, Shelby Hall, Coral Sugiyama, who was it? 43 originally. I don't know. But we had some hammers that we could just kind of move around. At that time, you could bump up 2 weight classes. So I think I weighed in at 136 for the duel, and I wrestled 155, or weighed in at 136 for the tournament, and I wrestled 155 in that duel. And Grace Bullen she weighed in at 130, wrestled 143. She pinned Alexis Porter, and that kind of switched everything around. And then I'm wrestling there 155, and 155 is big. I'm already small for 136. I'm small for a 62 kilo girl, small for a 136 in college, but I'm wrestling 155, and I know that I need bonus points. I know I need to, have a 4-point spread here. I needed to get a pin, or I needed to get a tech while blanking her, and it was very hard. It was hard to move her. It was hard to get under her. It was hard to get around her, but the team was going crazy. We were down and we were coming back up. We hit that stride, and I knew if I did this, we had a really good shot of winning the duel and winning national duels, and somehow did it, survived, and we ended up winning, and that was a very sweet, sweet day.
Yeah, I bet. That sounds freaking awesome. I also noticed, and we had her on the show yesterday. We talked for like an hour. She was awesome. Tricia Saunders, you picked as your coach. Why did you pick Tricia? And maybe even more so, like, when do you remember finding out who she was and what she had done, and like discovering who she was as an athlete? True pioneer.
Well, yes. Why would I? It's like, why would I not? That's the obvious. Everyone should want her. She's the pioneer of the sport. She's amazing. So I first found out about her. I mean, you hear her name growing up, and you don't really, it doesn't click. It doesn't really matter. You're young, and it's like, oh, cool. Like she won a world title. Oh, she won 4 world titles. Whatever. But then as you get older, it's like, oh, wow, she won 4 world titles. Like, she is a stud. I don't know what year it was. It might have been 2016. I was on a junior world team, and she was one of the coaches. And that's when I really got to know her. She was at the camp. She worked with me. Or actually camps all leading up. We even had a camp here in Arizona. And she was just awesome. She's filled with knowledge, and she has so many nuggets of wisdom, and it's like, if you can grab them and you can take them, oh goodness, like, they're so great. So that's when I first got to know her. And then after I won a bronze medal that year, I remember we were sitting, it was myself, my dad, her, Aaron Tomio, and I think Maya Nelson was there with us too. And we were just sitting and talking, and I was just listening to her. She was talking, and I was just like in awe. I was like, this lady is awesome. And then I move here. I get to see her when she comes to the Wigwam camp for the women's national team. Even when I'm in Iowa, she would give me calls every once in a while and just check up on me, tell me that she's watching, and like would talk about anything and everything. And so that was really cool. So getting to see her, and then when I saw her name on the list of potential coaches, I was like, this is who I want. All the coaches were awesome on the list. You couldn't go wrong with any of them. But I've had personal experience with her. I've had her in my corner. I've had her supporting me. And I just know that all the girls on my team are going to be better because they get to spend the weekend with her.
Sure. Having spent that time with her, I think it's the junior camps and teams, how would you describe her coaching style? Not just like in the corner, but all of it, from interacting with you one on one to coaching you or a bunch of girls on the mat to everything.
I think she's just smart. She is very smart and she is a very high level thinker. The way she'll explain, a mental strategy or leading into a tournament, not even the wrestling specifically, but the sports psych side of it. It's just so high level, and the way she can word things, it's very reassuring and very calming. And then it also makes you very optimistic and excited for what you can do. The way she'll word things, it's like she really believes in me. She knows that I can make this team. She knows, at the time I'll make, when she called me, I remember it was after practice, she gives me a call, and I'm about to jump in the shower after a practice at Iowa, and we're leading up to Final X 2019. Is that the year? Yeah, 2019. And just the way she talked to me, I was so excited. I was like, I want to go do another practice right now. So that's cool. And then her breaking down technique and mat strategy, she's just very, very smart. And that's the best way to put it. She's just super high level.
Sure. And maybe they're very similar, maybe they're different, maybe there's a degree of both. But can you compare and contrast her to Mark Perry as a coach?
They're they both can talk wrestling and talk strategy all day long. So huge comparison there. They're both very smart. I remember telling my mom about Mark Perry, after I first experienced him. And I was like, this guy is crazy. He watches so much film and he knows everything. He can tell you about a move. And he's like, oh, in 73, this guy did this move and he was wearing this color shoes and blah, blah. It's like, wow, who knows this stuff? He's just crazy smart. So both of them super high level. And I think they're both very calm too, because some coaches want to be very aggressive with the way they teach or loud or fast, but they both can slow it down and really make it make sense for me.
How are they different?
I think Perry has a lot more analogies to the MMA or boxing world,
Yeah.
and he uses those to teach wrestling as well, because there are a lot of things that correlate, and then she is strictly wrestling, and then I think she has more mindset within her teachings.
Sure.
She also has, a lot of age on him, so she has more wisdom in a sense. She's
Sure.
done it. She's done what I want to do. And, Perry's won 2 NCAA titles, so he's a stud as well, but she's won 4 world titles. So, just she has that experience and she's stepped on the mat and she's felt it and she's done it.
Interesting nugget I did not know until yesterday. She was never the favorite to win the world title. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah, every time I can't repeat all the stats, but this year I won it. I had to be a 5-time world champ. This other year I won it. I had to be a 3-time world champ. So it was like every time she was the underdog, which I'm like, you're a 4-time world champ. You think by the third or fourth one, they're like, okay, yeah, they're gonna just go out there and kill it. But no, I thought that was really cool. I learned a lot of interesting things. I could repeat them all, but that would be redundant. Okay, so some not as great news. I've heard you're probably not, or you're not, I guess, going to be able to compete in the Captain's Cup. That's unfortunate, but I guess what happened, or how much can you tell us?
Just got a little banged up. Yeah, so I was actually really excited about competing. I really wanted to. I wanted to feel these girls, at my weight. We've got Macy Kilty, Mallory Velty, Jen Page, Moda Pettis, and Bruntel. So these girls, I don't know which one of these or any of the others. There's a whole list at 62.
Yeah.
The draft eligibility list was very deep for that weight. So I was kind of glad being a 62, I didn't have to deal with it at the time. I don't know who's going to make it out. I don't know who I'm going to wrestle on that, Saturday or Sunday, that day 2, best 2 out of 3. So I was excited to get a feel. And, some people don't want to give that feel up, but it's like I can get a lot out of 6 minutes. I can get a lot more out of 6 minutes than anyone else can. I know I'm a smart wrestler. I can study well, but then I also know I have excellent coaches. So the 6 minutes with Macy Kilty in France, I got more out of that than she did, because I know Mark Perry and Lee Pritz are sitting there watching every millisecond of the match, So I'm getting all the details. So I was excited. So that's a bummer. But I actually got hurt in that match with Macy, and I was really hoping that I could come back and be ready, but just not worth it at the time. April is the most important thing. I want to make an Olympic team and win an Olympic gold medal, and I can't risk that. It's too close, So I know there are probably going to be more opportunities for captain's cups and things like that, but the Olympics only comes around every 4 years. But yeah, just a little banged up, and just want to heal and be 100% ready for the moment.
Yeah. You mentioned, I want to go to the Olympics. I want to be an Olympic gold medalist. Do you remember like the first Olympics you wrestled? I mean, you watched, whether it was men's or women's, and like who was competing, and when, maybe that's when the idea of being an Olympian crossed your mind, or maybe it was a different time.
I mean, when I was 4, there wasn't women's wrestling in the Olympics, but I was saying that I wanted to be an Olympic gold medalist. So it's always been the dream. I don't remember like the first match that I watched. I do remember watching Helen's match. Everyone should watch that match. That's history right there. But I remember I was sitting in a coffee shop watching that match, and my brother at the time was at Ranger School, so I would write him like a little paragraph every single day, and I'd put like 5 days in an envelope and send it to him to have, something while he's, struggling over there doing what he had to do. And I would just be like, all right, like this is happening in the world today, like this person did this, whatever. And I remember I was writing these, and I'm watching the Olympics, and I'm watching her match, and I am sitting in the coffee shop crying because I'm like, this is incredible. And I think that was the first moment that I was like, I'm going to have that feeling. That's going to happen for me. And, I was older, so I could understand it more. But, we watched the Olympics growing up. It was on the TV, all of the sports.
Yeah.
But that was the moment where it was like, wow, like it hit deep. It wasn't just like, oh, this is cool. It was like, this is cool.
You made the hair on my arm stand up thinking about that. Sitting in that coffee shop, be honest, did you think Helen was going to win? I'll be honest, I didn't.
I don't.
Shame on me.
I think I knew she could. But
sure, but that's a different, right?
Logic.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the logic. And as much as I really wanted her to, I was like, I don't know, like this is a monster that you're competing against right here. But she was a different type of monster. That year she was on a mission. And you could see it just in her eyes. She was ready to win that. So I guess I didn't have enough belief in her as I should have, as, a woman in America, wrestling and like looking up to her. I should have had more belief in her at the time, because, I think looking at the potential team that we're going to send to Tokyo in 2021, we're all going to be taking out some of these girls on their home turf, and that's going to be incredible. So I need to have that belief that I didn't have in 16 and 21 for myself and my 5 teammates.
How do you battle that? How do you get to that point mentally to really believe it?
I think it's a daily struggle, a daily battle. I've definitely had times where I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is worth it, whatever. But every single day, having Mark Perry in my ear, having talks with Tricia, or even Andre at Neuroforce, and just small conversations with friends or my dad or my mom, it's like, this is possible. And it's an everyday thing. It's not on the day of the tournament you have to believe. No, you have to believe every single day, because if you're not believing when you're training, then why are you training? If I don't think that I can win an Olympic gold medal, then why am I wasting my time? I might as well go get a normal job and do whatever. But so that belief fuels every single day training. And, some days are not as good as others, but I have great teammates. I have Forrest barking in my ear when I'm having a bad day, and I'm barking in hers when she's having a bad day. So just a very good, strong community that's holding me up. And then I've just seen myself over the last 3 years or so, since I made that move to Iowa and then the move here, just being under Mark Perry, I have seen the growth. The whole Kayla 2.0 thing, it's a different animal out there. And seeing how much I can grow and how much better I can get every single day, it's like, how can I not believe in myself?
Do you have a couple defining moments along the way when you look back at your career the last decade?
Ooh. I think losing at Final X to Mallory was huge. I talked to, actually, even losing to Helen in 2017 in the finals, that was a huge moment too. I remember talking to Kevin Black after my matches with Helen, and he was like, it just seemed like you were here to kind of see what you could do, not here to make a world team or anything. And then same thing in 2018 against Mallory. I went, I'm like, wow, Final X is so cool. Like, it's such an awesome event to be part of. But I wasn't really there to make the team until I lost it. I won that first match, and I know I beat her in April. I beat her a couple months before. So it's like, I know I can beat this girl. Why did I let her win? She's beaten me twice, and she beat me in the two where it was the most important. But I think that loss really changed. It's like, I need to step up. I need to make this my career, and I need to get it done because no one's going to hand it to me. There's always going to be a Mallory Velty or a Macy Kilty or whoever else you want to throw in front of me. Like, they're going to be trying to stop me. They're going to try and take this spot. They want the spot on the 62 spot for the Olympic team for Team USA women's freestyle, and I just can't let that happen. So there's always going to be those people, but I think that 2018 loss really showed me that I've got to be an adult about this.
And you bring up one of the guys I think just does a phenomenal job with his influence in women's wrestling over the years is Kevin Black. I mean, for those people that know Kevin, I mean, you're not the only one that speaks about conversations with Kevin Black. I mean, he's just got a great perspective, and he's just an awesome guy.
He really is. I haven't been able to talk to him much. I used to go up and train with him, but he has actually Coral Sugiyama, who's one of my teammates for the Captain's Cup. So I know she's getting some really good training right now with him, and the mental aspect of it too. Any conversation with him, I learn something and I grow and I get better from it.
I guess taking a look back at your career, maybe on the lighter side, maybe not, but no, I'm just thinking, you've been traveling overseas for a long time. You're cadets and juniors and U23s and seniors. Do you have like a favorite place you've been, whether it was the wrestling or the culture or it was weird, exotic, whatever place? Like, is there any? Do you like traveling overseas, and two, are there any places you've enjoyed going to?
I love traveling. It's super awesome to experience the world and see the world because I've never been out of the country for not wrestling. So that's a goal of mine, to go on an actual vacation and do something like that. But one of these days, maybe after the Olympics, I'll take some time for myself. But I don't. A lot of the times, I connect the trip with how I do in the tournament or how the tournament goes. So there are some countries that, that's a cool country, but I absolutely hate it because I only have negative memories there. What is it? Bucharest, maybe?
Romania?
I think, yeah, I think that's the year that I hurt my shoulder and I lost in the bronze medal match at U23 Worlds, and it was my second time losing in the bronze medal match, I think. Yeah. And so it's like, I hate that country. That country is the worst. I remember the last night before we left, I'm sitting there, the coaches are celebrating and hanging out, and Forrest is there, and I'm sitting there on this couch just staring. I'm like, I hate this. Please get me home right now. And so now I only think of negative things when I think about that country. But Japan is beautiful. We've been there twice for World Cup once, and then for a camp in Nakatagawa another time. And that's actually, I think, where we will be training for the Olympic training camp. So that city was amazing. You know, it's just a beautiful country, beautiful culture. I'm a quarter Japanese, so that's also very cool. And then Azerbaijan, that was my second cadet world trip, I think. I got a silver medal there, so a bummer. I didn't win. I actually got 5'd in the finals, so that's embarrassing. But
It happens.
whatever, it happens.
It happens.
I'm over it. I don't go back and watch that match ever. But yeah, so that was really awesome. The city was very beautiful, and also a place that I had never heard of before. So yeah, I don't think there's really a bad place that I've been. You know, I've been really lucky to have some great trips and great locations.
Okay, what I'm hearing is you really have a good association with Japan, which is great because that's the next destination.
Exactly.
Awesome. What do you do between now and the trials? Right? What are we, geez, we're 2 months away. It feels just like that. It feels like
fast.
yesterday they postponed them. But considering you're dinged up, it sounds like probably not too bad, but enough to not compete. But what do the next 2 months look like?
Well, I'm going to Captain's Cup. I'm still going to be in the corner. I'm
Cool.
going to cheer on my team and be there and do whatever I can. And then we have a camp afterwards, so I'm going to learn and grow and get better and hopefully be on the mat with some of these girls and get a feel and, you know, take some wisdom and knowledge from Clarissa and Jess and Terry, you know, because I don't get to see them every day. So any
Right.
chance I get, I want to do some one-on-ones and learn something good from them. So that, and then just get back here and train. You know, my coaches have a really good game plan for me, both on the mat and then strength and conditioning wise. They work really well together. So just continuing to get better every single day is really the plan. And that's a plan every single time, you know, no matter what the tournament is or how far off the tournament is. Just continuing to get better, sharpening the skills. I don't know who's going to make it through the bracket. You know, if you look at 68, you have Tamara sitting in the finals, and the heavy favorite to make it through is Forrest. You know, at 62, there's no heavy favorite of who's going to make it through.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't get to focus on one person and be ready for one person. I'm in the whole field, and by that, I'm just focusing on myself. How can I get better? What are the areas that I struggle in that I need to focus on? And where can I become the next level of me? Where can I, you know, just the game? And I don't want to just be able to beat these girls. I want to be able to dominate them. And I need to get better every single day, like just another inch every single day. And even if it's not an inch, a centimeter of improvement every single day.
Are we like looking for Kayla 3.0?
I mean, I guess so. You know, heck, 4.0 if you want. You know,
Yeah.
It's just a new animal.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to come up with a new name or something.
We'll figure it out. We're getting closer to the end here, but I got a little game we like to play with our guests, and it's wins and whoopings. So from the lifespan of your career, is there one win that stands out? It can be like your best, or a comeback, or you were sick and you beat somebody, or somebody who had beaten you in the past, or whatever it is. For whatever reason, one win that really sticks out as memorable. And then like the opposite end, like one ass whooping you took that was just maybe embarrassing or just like sticks out. You've got 5. I'm not saying it was that match, but everybody's got a story. So I'm looking for a couple of yours.
All right, so the win is definitely the U23 semifinals match from, what was that, 2019, I think? Yeah, I'm going to say 2019. All the years are confusing now.
Sure.
But I was down 7-0 going into the second period. I actually lost. I got teched by this girl the year before at U23s. So, I mean, I was injured that match, so that's my excuse there. But either way, she teched me the year before. So going into the second period, being down 7-0, I was not super hopeful, I guess. But, you know, I just stayed calm. I had Perry in my corner, and it was like, all right, like we just 1 point at a time, 1 point at a time. And I started chipping away, and I was able to – oh, the cat's here.
It's okay. We can put them on.
Keep chipping away, and I ended up getting a pin, I did the little, I call it the jackknife. Some people call it the scoop to loop, whatever. The hook, roll, got the fall, and that was just one of the greatest moments. Because I also had never medaled at U23s. The 2 years before that, I lost in the bronze medal match. So that was exciting. And the pictures from that, I'm like, wow, you can see it on my face. After I qualified the weight at Pan Am's in Ottawa, it was just like I was happy, but, it just wasn't as exciting. But that moment, I was just like, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
that was a good one. And then a bad one, I was actually just talking about this not too long ago. Someone was talking about being undefeated in college, and I was like, well, I could have been undefeated in college, but I have one loss my freshman year, and it was Sarah Hildebrandt. She bumped up, I think she was wrestling 123 at the time, and she bumped up to wrestle 130, and she beat me in a duel, King versus Campbellsville, and now I don't have that perfect record in college. So, and then she also beat me again, I think maybe 2 years later or something at World Team Trials. We're in the quad pod forever. That's anytime I'm in the quad pod, I just think about sitting there and hoping that the ref blows us up. But so now her and I will sit and work on that together. So it's kind of funny how we've come full circle. And, it started with us being roommates in Fargo and me looking up to her and her being like a big sister to me, to her beating me in college. And then now she's very small, so we will never compete against each other again, but we will go and practice and stop. It's a cat. Yeah,
right.
so we'll never compete again, but we can work together and grow and, potentially make an Olympic team together.
What'd you think when she bumped up? Your freshman year, I'm sure you're doing well and you have high expectations because you'd had success to this point. Here's your former Fargo roommate coming up trying to spoil the party. What was that like?
Well, I don't know. My freshman year, WCWAs was stacked. There were so many good girls in there, and I had to wrestle. I remember I wrestled Bobo Delgado, and I was scared to wrestle her, not gonna lie. She is aggressive, and she was actually a coach of mine at U23s one year, so now that I know her, I'm like, she's not that scary, and she's super awesome. But at the time, I was shaking in my pants. I was shaking in my boots. And then right after I had to wrestle Sarah, so I beat Bobo, and then I had to wrestle Sarah, and I'm like, why? Why does this tournament have to be so tough? Why does this dual tournament have to be so hard? And yeah, I mean, she was doing what she had to do. In college, the coaches will move you around just so they can get the team points wherever they could. And, Jason Moorman made a good call there, bumping her up, and they got the win. And I don't even remember what the score was. But
Were you surprised by it? Were you surprised that you wrestled her, that they bumped her up?
I think maybe initially a little bit, but I knew it could have happened. I knew it was a possibility, so I wasn't like shocked or stunned or anything, but I was like, oh, wow, okay, they are going to do this. All right, let's go.
Dang. All right. Well, geez, it's been 40 minutes, Kayla. I appreciate you being here. Shane, you got anything else for Kayla?
No, just
today?
really appreciate the time today. Been fun to hear more about your story. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Have-
Any parting words, Kayla?
No, just tune in for the Captain's Cup. Watch we changed our name to the Miracle Workers. So watch the Miracle Workers. I have a tough lineup. We got Aaron Golston, Rana Heaton, Coral Sugiyama, myself. Nope, not myself. Julia Salata is filling in for me. She is going to get some wins. And then we have Ashlyn Ortega. Unfortunately, Kennedy Blades is out. And then Hannah Gladden. So we have 6 studs, and we are coming for the big purse. And Tricia Saunders is the coach. So tune in the 13th and 14th on Flow, and let's get it.
Awesome. We appreciate the time, Kayla. Thanks so much. We'll see you down this weekend at the Captain's Cup.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you guys.
Awesome, man. Always good to talk with Kayla.
Yeah.
And always good to learn a few new things. But now I want to turn my attention to you, Shane. Yeah, we've probably known each other, I don't know, we'll call it a decade.
Decade, I would say. Yeah.
Thereabouts. I don't know your whole story, though. I know you're from Wisconsin. You wrestled in high school. I think you were second in the state?
Yeah, I was in the private school division. Wisconsin had one of those. It doesn't exist anymore, but took took second place.
Yeah.
But I found out recently, and I think I'm right on this. I was texting Jody Strittmatter a couple weeks ago because I got to tell him this story. So the guy that beat me, he was a sophomore, I was a senior, and he ended up winning 3 of them. He was really good, and he won Fargo that summer. So, this is 25 years ago, right? It's
so
a long,
old.
long time ago. But so I recently, his name is Rudy Ruiz, and Rudy had something like on his Facebook of a video from him in Fargo. And who did he beat? Jody Strittmatter.
Really?
So that was funny. I just learned that a couple of weeks ago. But took second place there, and just love the sport. I just love wrestling. Started in first grade, but did not wrestle in college. But just through high school, love it, and that's it.
What got you? Did you have brothers or friends, or how'd you get turned on to it?
I remember my dad was a barber, and I grew up in a little town called Ripon, Wisconsin.
Is
He
that
was
why
a
your hair's
barber
so
there.
nice?
Maybe some of it. So there was a local farmer that my dad was buddies with, and his brother was a heavyweight at Ripon High School. Okay. And I remember my dad would cut hair on Friday nights until 8 o'clock. He'd pick my brother and I up, and we'd go watch these dual meets. Next thing I know, I was 7 years old. I go to a wrestling tournament in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And I got a pretty good memory. I can't tell you stuff from 5 minutes ago, but from 30 years ago, I'm pretty good. And I just remember showing up at this wrestling tournament. I don't ever recall having a practice. I don't think I did. And I can still remember, I show up in the Sears brown Velcro shoes, the white T-shirt, and the pair of shorts. And the kid that I was wrestling, his name was Seth Pilot. And he was just a hammer. Of all the kids to wrestle your first time ever, never knowing what you're doing, not the kid you wanted to wrestle. And he shows up with the Fond du Lac was the Cardinals. He had the red singlet on, the awesome old Asics Tiger red wrestling shoes, the headgear. I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death. And
You might as well have had a tattoo.
No, he didn't have the tat. But I remember, the referee, was probably a high school kid, it was a youth tournament, telling me to put my toe on the line. So I didn't even know where to put my feet.
Yeah.
He pinned me in 10 seconds. I had no idea what happened. I had no idea. I don't even remember. I just didn't know what I was doing. But I remember standing up after getting pinned, and I remember fighting back the tears. I didn't exactly know why I was fighting back. I just knew something wasn't right.
Yeah.
So then the next couple hours, which is the little 4-man bracket, I watched, for a couple hours, I'm assuming. And then I beat a kid for third place. And I have this white, this is from March of 1983. I got this white third place ribbon. I don't think I'd give it to you for $50,000. And I always think back.
I wouldn't pay $50,000.
Yeah. I always think back. And I want to go back to that spot. It's now not the high school anymore because it's so long ago. But I want to go back because I know exactly where that match took place. And I just want to go back there and just kind of suck it all in, because never in a million years would I have ever thought that day it changed my life. It really did. It's crazy. 7 years old.
It's so crazy. I remember my first match. Caleb Cook, he beat me 8-2, and I could remember. You could take me back to the gym. I know the exact spot where the mat was. That's too funny. So you go on, you wrestle through high school, you're second place. When does it become a career? You had badge of state wrestling?
Yeah, I did. I've wanted to be a sports broadcaster my entire life.
Yeah.
Since I was 10 years old, I never had plan B. It was always plan A, and I'm always, grateful to my mom and dad. They never, that was a big thing for me too, looking back on it, being around this sport for a while. My mom and dad were awesome.
Yeah.
They were just awesome. It wasn't, my dad never wrestled, so we'd go to these youth tournaments, and we didn't go to a ton of them. We would show up, we would go to the youth tournament, and that was kind of the end of it.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Because the reality is, I'm in that pool of 99.5% of the people, right? A 0.5% of anybody that wrestles, those are the Division I guys, those are the Big Ten guys. Sure. So that most of us are in the same camp. So it was a great experience for me, but I always wanted to be I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, and my first love is baseball. I've always said wrestling is the best sport, baseball's the greatest game. I love baseball. So when I was 11, 12 years old, I would go down to a park. They had a baseball tournament, 12-year-old baseball tournament. I'm like 10 or 11,
Yeah.
and they would let me get on the microphone.
Really?
And it was man, it's just another one of those places that I'll always appreciate those people that gave me the chance, because I mean some 11-year-old loudmouth kid that just wants to talk some baseball. So they would let me do that, and just really fell in love with it. And that's just what I wanted to do. And like I said, my goal as a kid, and now I've learned I just wouldn't have been good enough, but my dream as a kid was to wrestle at Arizona State.
Really?
So I went to a Bobby Douglas wrestling camp when I was 15, got to meet Zeke Jones. I think he just won his first world title. I remember Zeke Jones, like, anybody want to go? Anybody want to try to take me down, take down the world champ?
A little guy, too,
yeah,
right?
And he was little. So I had Sean Charles was one of my counselors.
Yeah.
And Marco Sanchez was another guy. I'll always remember Marco Sanchez sitting with, because he wrestled the Brands in college. So I'm like, you've wrestled Terry Brands, you've wrestled Tom Brands. And he's like, telling me the stories.
Yeah, it sucked.
But, that was, so I always wanted to wrestle at Arizona State. And then, what happened to me was I wanted to wrestle in college, but, I have a son that's almost 25, so you can kind of, fill the blanks in there. That put an end to the college wrestling, but I've always joked I got 4 years left. Technically I got 4 years of eligibility, but
should we call Zeke?
Exactly. Just I always
the coach now.
my whole room was all Arizona State. I mean, it was all Sun Devils, everything.
Why?
I mean,
You're Wisconsin.
My grandparents lived in Arizona.
Okay.
So I go out there and visit, love the weather. I mean, yesterday when I left Wisconsin, it's below zero. Here in Austin, it's 70 degrees. I mean, this is heaven. This is heaven.
It's a good spot to be.
It is fantastic. But so then I, had to, work some kind of odd jobs. And then I went to a radio school when I was 25, just a little 6-month deal in Arizona again, and got some contacts and worked in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Green Bay Appleton is the market. Did a sports talk show for 5 or 6 years. And at that time, Scott Cleaver, I think that's maybe what I met you, Mark. He had the Cheesehead in Wisconsin, so I would do stuff with the Cheesehead, and then I started Badger State Wrestling. That's when I really got to know you guys, and that was in 07.
Okay.
And did that, and then went to track and came here and got some big breaks along the way with USA Wrestling and obviously Big Ten Network, and it's been an awesome ride. It's been a great ride.
You said you went to radio school or broadcast school?
I just went to this little radio school. It was like in a strip mall, this hole in the wall place.
Okay.
But I knew, and this is, I've made plenty of bad decisions, but I've made a couple of really good ones. I knew that this job, it is what it is. You got to know somebody. You got to get a break. Yeah. I mean, I've had some people that have bent over backwards, given me an opportunity. Then you got to deliver, but you got to have somebody believe in you, right? I mean, you got to have somebody believe in you. So I met. The way people always ask me, how'd you crack into the Big Ten?
Sure.
It would have been 2000. Let's call it 2010.
Yeah.
I was doing PA for the Wisconsin Badgers. Bart Shelsvig and Corey Wallman were assistant coaches. Got to know Barry Davis. I was doing PA for the Badgers. And then I did the Big Tens, I think, in 2010 for UWBadgers.com. It was at Northwestern. And I can still to this day remember, being up in the media section. I'm doing the internet deal for the Badgers. And I remember seeing Tim Johnson, Jim Gibbons, and Lee Kemp. Uh-huh. And I remember thinking, this is the goal. Like, to me, the Big Ten Network has always been the goal since Big Ten started wrestling. Yeah. So I just remember thinking I gotta figure out a way to get to the big leagues. That was the big leagues for me. So at the NCAAs, I don't know when this started, but in 2011 they had the live sports radio with those headpieces. Yeah. Now those are also on ESPN 3 feeds over the years, but at that time I believe it was just in venue.
I think so.
And I went to Philadelphia. Barry Davis let me stay with them, and that was the year Badgers lost 3 in the semis. I could give you Barry Davis stories for hours.
We don't have enough time, but I appreciate it.
I went back to the hotel, and Jim Gibbons was there. Jim Gibbons was in the hotel lobby, and I'm like, I've got to figure out a way to meet Jim Gibbons.
Yeah.
So I went up, put my bag away in the hotel, came down to the lobby, introduced myself to Jim, and Jim and I were having a conversation. And Quentin Wright, I believe, had won his first title that night. He definitely won a title. But Quentin Wright came walking by, and I started talking to Quentin a little bit. And while I was doing that, some guys were talking to Jim. And they were telling Jim, they're like, yeah, we heard this guy, Jim. You got to find this guy. And I could hear him talking. And I did that with Brian Hazard. Hazard and I did the finals and, felt like we did a pretty good job. And Jim calls me over and goes, Shane, come here. He goes, Shane was doing this tonight. Start talking. That's what he said. He goes, start talking. I'm like, what do you want me to say? And the guys are like, that's him. It was the Scove brothers. I believe it was Jude and Andrew Scove.
Okay.
One was a national champ at Ohio State. And the rest is history. Jim and I went out that night to Pinky's Diner in Philadelphia along with Randy Lewis, and I didn't know Randy at the time. And, a little while later, I was on Big Ten Network doing the timing, too. Just the timing is everything. Just was an opportunity that opened up, and now do a lot of play-by-play, and I love it. I love it.
That's crazy. Tell me about your first event as working with the Big Ten. What do you remember? Or what was it?
Yeah, the first event on Big Ten Network would have been the Midlands, and that would have been, I believe, like the 2011 Midlands, the 11-12 season.
Yep.
And what I remember about it more than anything was Matt McDonough was wrestling, was it Gerard Garnett from Virginia Tech?
Could have been.
Okay? And I remember, I will be the first to admit this. Like, I'm scared to death. and I'm okay admitting it. It's like, yeah, I'm scared. I've never done this before, at least at that level, a little bit nervous. So I went up to Matt McDonough, and I said, Matt, introduce myself. I'm Shane Sparks, Big Ten Network. I'm going to be doing these interviews, and, if you'd win, I might have even, hey, can you help me out? Okay? Matt's really cool
Nice guy. Yeah.
We do the interview. He's great. I'm driving back to Wisconsin, and Doug Brooker and Jim Gibbons give me a call, and they're like, we don't know what you said to Matt McDonough, but he's never talked like that. And I just remember so now I'll always love McDonough for doing that. Any of these guys that do this, I really appreciate it because it's not easy. It's a tough job because there's such a fine line depending on when you get them.
Yeah.
If you get them right off the mat, they're exhausted. So you want to ask them a good question, but at the same time, you don't want to stump them. You don't want to ask them too tough of a question. So there's a real fine line there. And you can ask a great question, and you're dealing with somebody's personality. Some of these guys don't want to do it. So it's a balancing act. But I remember the Midlands. That's the one that I remember most, and I'll always love Matt McDonough. He was my first guy.
What have you learned about even that? You said like when to grab a guy, how to ask him a question, what to ask him, and what not to ask him.
Here's the biggest thing I've learned in 10 years. It's amazing what kind of rapport you can build in 1 minute. So a guy that helped me out a ton was Pete Isaias from USA Wrestling. I take a bullet for Pete Isaias. I love Pete.
Yeah.
And Pete brought me in let's call it 2008 or 2009 at Fargo. And I will always appreciate this because it was so important. He let me learn. I got to begin not being very good. I had notepads. So I would be doing interviews in the Fargo Dome on the floor, and I had notes. And I'm so grateful that Pete let me develop.
Yeah.
So that was huge. But as far as the rapport, sometimes we get guys right off the mat. If I'm being honest, it's just a matter of opinion. I don't really care for that. If it was my call, which it's not, I'd rather get guys with a few minutes.
Yeah.
Like, there's been years we've done the Big Tens. I'll give you a good story. One of my favorite Big Ten stories was, it was in Madison, and they would bring these guys off the mat. They'd win their Big Ten title, and we would do the interview with them following weight class in between the first and second period. Tony Ramos. This one, I love Tony Ramos,
Colorful.
too. He's another one because Ramos was always, and this is, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here.
Go for it.
When you look at sports, what market stars? The NBA is great because they market stars. NFL market stars. Baseball, it's tougher because of the schedule. Wrestling has got to do a better job marketing stars.
Yeah.
And I think FloWrestling is a big reason for it. Big Ten Network. All these, track wrestling, before you spotlight these athletes unlike it's been done in a long time. 10 years ago, it just didn't work like this. But, and now I think these guys want to build their brand.
Yeah.
The guy that comes to mind for me, and I'll get back to the Ramos story, Roman Bravo Young at Penn State, I think right now is doing a phenomenal job. Yeah. He's a superstar. He's fun. He's cool. I have a son that's 17 years old. He's a junior in high school. He's never wrestled, okay? But he watches a lot of wrestling, and now these guys, these high school kids are on YouTube constantly. He loves Roman Bravo Young. He loves Austin DeSanto.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, I was hoping that would happen this week. But these guys are marketing. So why wouldn't you want to do an interview? I mean, that was a frustration I had when I first started. Some guys wouldn't want to do interviews, and it was like, come on. Like, do it for the sport.
Yeah.
So getting back to Ramos, I think Tony Ramos was... I've made the joke, and I've said this story a million times. A Tony Ramos autograph isn't worth anything because everybody's got one. Ramos was so good with the fans. He was so great as far as he'd show up. He had that legendary stare down. Yep. The crowd loved him. You look at Carver Hawkeye, Mark. You could argue that in the last 10 years, you look at the biggest victories that somebody's had in Hawkeye singlet, you think about Ramos and Oliver, Ramos and Conway, Ramos and Gulabon. The crowd loved him. They loved him. And then he'd come off, he'd sign autographs, he'd always do an interview, and he kept it 100.
Yeah.
I mean, he was fantastic. So he wins the Big Ten title. And we had done a few interviews, but it wasn't like I had great rapport with him, okay? He comes off and wins his Big Ten title. He beats Tyler Graff. I'll never forget this. We got two wooden chairs. He sits down, and Ramos he's a tough dude, okay? But I got to see a different side of him, and I'll always appreciate this. He just sat there, and he took a deep breath, and he goes, I'm finally on that board.
Really?
As a Big Ten champion. And then I said, so we're going on in about a minute. Actually, it probably wasn't even a minute. We're probably 30 seconds away. And I'll clean the language up a little bit,
I guess.
But I looked at Ramos, dead serious. I was dead serious. I don't know if he'd remember this or not. And I've used this on a few guys, but Ramos was the first guy. I look at him dead serious. I go, yeah, Tony, timing's everything. Because if you and I were the same age, you wouldn't have won anything. And he looked, you could tell he just kind of looked at me. We both started laughing, and it was literally like, you guys are on in 5 seconds. Boom, there we are. The rapport. Like it was different.
Yeah.
You know, you just get these guys comfortable. And if you have a minute with somebody, they might tell you something. Like a lot of times, just in the conversation, in just a minute, something will come up. It's like, bang, there's my question.
To talk about.
Awesome. I'll ask you this. And the other thing I do like to do, too, from an interviewing standpoint, and this is just the way I like to do it, I like to tell you what I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
I don't want to ask you something where I'm, sometimes in Fargo, too, with the high school kids, their eyes get big, and you can just see it, and you're just like, okay, you're in the headlights. This isn't going to go very well. So I like it when you can ask, let people know what you're going to ask them. But so I don't know if that answers your questions, but getting rapport is huge. And then I would say this, too, and this is just my own belief. When you're doing interviews, don't ask, people might argue this. I'm going to get maybe 30 seconds with you. Maybe there's a big story and it involves you. You're not going to answer it. I know you're not going to answer it. Chances are you've already told me because I've asked you, hey, Mark, you mind if I ask you this? And you're probably, you might be, I'm not going to answer that. I'm not asking you. Yeah. I'm not going to waste a bullet asking you a question that you're not going to answer, and it's going to take 10 seconds. So that's the other thing. Some people might be like, you got to ask the question. I don't think so. I mean,
and there's different types of settings, right? There's what we did today, we're doing today, where whether it's in person or virtually, absolutely, where it's time to tell stories and ask those questions. And then on the mat, it's like, bro, you got 30 seconds. You're not going to get the life story. I need one or two hard-hitting things. And this guy's tired.
Oh, sure.
And he's breathing to the mic anyways, right? So get your thing, get your soundbite, or get whatever, and let him out. One time that I was really impressed with you, 2018 Big Tens, I think, with Mark Hall, and he had his recorder. So what happens was he pulls out this, I thought it was like a flute, but it's called a recorder.
Yeah, yep.
And he's going to play it too.
Hot cross buns, I think he was going to go break down.
And all of a sudden he pulls it out, and the crowd starts booing. But they're not booing him. They turned the lights off,
they turned us. Because I didn't know the story either.
Yeah.
They turned, I believe, the Jumbotron. It was up on the Jumbotron, and that went off.
Yes.
So everybody's booing, and I don't know what's happening, and Mark doesn't know, so Mark's like, all
right.
I
guess I'll put it away.
He's like, I'll put it away. So I'm like,
no, do it for me.
Yeah, please, Mark, I'm asking you, can you do this for me? And he did.
You saved it. You saved it.
And so I can't say it enough. For high school, college, senior level guys, people want to hear from you. If you have people want to hear from you, and And I just always have appreciated anybody that's done that because I know not everybody wants to do it, but it's important. It just is.
Well, and really, if we've been doing this, I started in '08. You were doing this broadcast stuff since even before, but within wrestling, 10, 12 years, you said it, that they want to grow their brands. They understand marketing for the sport. When we were in school, it was like, no, just
computers
wrestle.
The internet did not exist when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you need. I mean, no cell phones, no internet. It was you would get your results.
USA Wrestling Magazine.
Exactly. 2 weeks after the fact, you'd find out what was going on.
And these guys just weren't as used to talking to the media, and it wasn't as normal, and they weren't as good as it. These kids now that come in high school, so many of them, you could ask them questions. They can have a fluid conversation with you, where a lot of times prior, and it still happens, the younger you are, the more you're like this, a little stiff, little maybe uncomfortable.
Well, I'll give you a guy. Think about this one. This to me is the biggest example of it. I would say the best guy that I've ever dealt with, if somebody asked me, like, who's your favorite guy to deal with, it's close. The champ, Jordan Burroughs, has got to be number one for me. Kyle Snyder's going to be number two. But when you watch old videos of Burroughs on Flow when he's in college, I mean, he wasn't bad, but look at him now. Jordan Burroughs has it. I mean, the presence, he's articulate, well-spoken. He's got it all.
He's cool.
I mean, Jordan Burroughs, you talk about a guy that's, obviously his wrestling speaks for itself, but he's super smooth. I mean, I'm really excited to see what he does after wrestling because he's got it.
Yeah, and we were filming a documentary with him in 2016, and for one portion of it, we went to Philly, and we're walking around the streets of Philly for a day, and he's got a mic on the whole time, and his phone keeps ringing. It's different people interviewing him. He didn't give the same answer once. He's giving them all really different. It's not just like, okay, I got this cool thing, I'm just going to keep saying it. It was like something meaningful and unique to each one of these, whoever he was talking to, magazines, newspapers, radio, I don't know. But it's just...
And the other thing that he does, too, which is just what makes him pretty darn special, is Jordan Burroughs, and I've told this story before, too. Jordan Burroughs is one of those guys that when you get done doing something with him, you walk away and you feel like the important one. And that is a pretty... That's pretty special because he's made. I mean, there's been a handful of times I've walked away from him, and he just makes you feel good, So I just appreciate that.
You say that to me?
Wow. You're another one of those guys.
No. I meant Jordan. Jordan, like the way he talks to me, or you, like
everybody.
You're like, wow, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's my point.
He's just. I think that's big too. I mean, he's just super nice and accommodating, and I know these guys. The demands are high, so the fact that they give back and do these things, and I know they can't do everything, but it's pretty cool. We got some great. And that's one thing you guys do with those documentaries. I love those things because it's about the stories. Yeah. Like the wrestling's great, right? I mean, the wrestling's awesome. But the stories, like the stories. I was talking to, I got time for a quick story?
Yeah, man, we got plenty of time.
We're doing Ohio State, and I didn't get a chance to say this on the broadcast this last week because it was such a big match with Max Beard and Sammy Sasso. I'm going to tell the story at some point during a broadcast, but Coach Crowell, Nazareth High School, he's been there a long time. I talked to him 25 minutes on Saturday night because one thing I'm trying to do, and I got a long ways to go, but you want to keep getting better at everything, and I'm a big, golly, stories got to get these. We got to get these stories out. I mean, you can see the wrestling, you understand the wrestling, but I want to try to give you more. Yeah. And he told a great story about this. This is what I got back to. This stuff fires me up because it's about the experience. It's about the experience of 99% of us. Make wrestling something that somebody, when they're 35 years old, is like, man, that wrestling, I learned a lot from that, and that's important. So he tells a story about Sammy Sasso. I mean, Sammy Sasso looks the part, right? I mean, he looks like a mean dude.
He looks tough.
Right? He's tough. And Tom Ryan was telling me, he goes, hey, Sammy Sasso's a lover. He's a team before self guy, So then I talked to his coach, and I thought this is one of the coolest stories I've heard in a long time. And I'm 45 years old, so maybe it's like an old man deal. The older I get, also, I'm more impressed with how you are as a person. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still plenty of fanboy in me because I admire these guys. But I love it when somebody's super polite, does the right. I love that stuff because it's culture. This is a culture story. Yep. So they do this thing at Nazareth where they'll do some exercises at the end of practice. So one of them they do is a spotlight, and they'll bring a wrestler up. And the deal is, Mark, so if you are Sammy Sasso, I got to come up as your teammate. I can't look away. I got to look you right in the eye. I got to speak to you. I got to look you in the eye. Got to be heartfelt. And I have to tell you something about you that I admire that has nothing to do with wrestling. Okay? So, with Sammy, and I got this story, by the way, got to give credit. Andy Hamilton is the guy that tipped me off on this story, by the way. So, there's a freshman on the team who's, he's not Sammy Sasso, who's ranked number 1 or 2 in the country, and he goes up to him and he said, what I like about you, Sammy, is every time you see me in the hallway, you say hi to me. And that stuff to me is money.
That's
so
great.
Those are the kind of stories I just love about this sport. I mean, can you imagine? I guess that's made me think about Burroughs.
Yeah.
It's like you make somebody feel good, you go out inside that circle, and you lay it on somebody. You be as Tom Ryan would say, the savage, and he is a savage.
Yeah.
You be a savage when you have to, but then you're able to come off the mat. And, Zane Rutherford, those Penn State guys are like that.
Yeah.
Nolf, Rutherford,
Rip your arm off.
Vincenzo, Mark Hall, they will kill you. Zane Rutherford might be the biggest example. How does Zane Rutherford go to what we see in a wrestling mat to being like one of the nicest guys?
Oh, hey.
It's crazy. Because he's an absolute, that guy used to amaze me, the way he would just, and Rutherford, he scored a lot of points.
Yeah.
But he'd maul you. He put that bow and arrow in. There was nothing, he hurt you.
Yeah.
He hurt you. He was a Zane train, man. He was a beast.
All right, Shane, let's get into a little of this 2012, 13-ish. You move over to track wrestling?
I moved over to track wrestling. It was World Team Trials in 2015. They were in Madison, Wisconsin. And, I'd known you guys forever.
Yeah.
I'd done plenty of work for, you and I think, used to do the Who's Number One, like the first, second one of them. And that's probably been going on 10 years if I had to guess close to it.
Can't believe it, but I think you're right.
So I did plenty of work for you guys. And at that time, Flo approached me and Track Wrestling approached me. And Justin Tritz lived in Wisconsin. I knew Justin. So it just worked out. But, now we're here with you guys and, excited about it. It all worked out. And I will say this. My PSA for the day, Mark, I always tell my kids, health is super important. If you don't have health, you don't have anything. Yeah. I love cliches. That's accurate. So when this acquisition happened, I told my kids, I go, hey, guys, we got a new one. And I've always believed this, and I've always lived it, but it really, the light was shined on it. Don't burn bridges. I've known you a long time. We've always been fine.
Fine, but there... Not that there was ever tension
do you
between
remember
me
the
and
story
you.
in Fargo, Mark? Do you remember? I don't know if you remember this.
I remember Fargo being the first time. It was like,
here's
us versus them.
Well, I came up to you. This was Fargo 2016.
Okay. That was it.
Yeah, and I came up to you, and you and I have always been cool. But I said to you, I go, Mark, what I feel like right now is you and I are kids in a divorced family.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Mom and Dad are getting divorced, and now, you and I, let's not.
And you're
pick
with Mom
sides.
and you're with Dad.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember that conversation.
I do
we
too.
were always fine. But that's again, just kind of life lessons. Don't burn bridges. Don't get in Twitter battles.
Yeah.
Just stay out of the mud. Stay out of the mud, and you'll be okay.
And it's crazy because it's true, right? We were competitive companies going for the exact same thing.
But I will say this though, Mark, and this is my just kind of on a soapbox today.
Absolutely.
But when you look at any sport, can you imagine the Super Bowl if only one network did any coverage of it? I was always a big believer in I'd go to FloWrestling every day because I'm a wrestling fan. I'd be on Trek Wrestling every day because I'm a wrestling fan. There's other sites I'd go to.
Yep.
I was always a big believer, and I really, really believe this. And I'm right on this one. It's the high tide rises all ships.
Yeah.
It's everybody had the place they added value within the wrestling community. Period. I was never, I don't know. I just never. They were competing companies in some aspects, but I think, I don't know, you just do your job, you do the best you can. Like I said, you stay out of the mud, and everybody's fine.
And here we are.
Yeah, exactly.
How about this, though? What did you think? When did you hear, there's a thing going on with Flo, and what did you think?
Man, it was always in the back of my mind because it just made so much sense.
Yeah.
From a business standpoint, it was a puzzle, and you knew if it connected, it was going to be the 800-pound gorilla.
Yeah.
So from a business standpoint, it always made sense to me. I'm not some genius on business by any stretch, but I have a little bit of an understanding on how these things work, right? I mean, these are bigger companies, and it didn't surprise me. I mean, I was not surprised at all. I mean, I got the news, and the only thing I was a little bit disappointed on, and again, it's not going to matter, was my boss is a guy named Travis Shives. He wrestled at Mankato for Jim Makovsky, and he was my boss, and I love the guy. He's one of the best people I've ever met. So, but Travis will be a friend for life. That was the only, that was just kind of like, oh, darn.
Yeah.
But hey, you move on, you meet new people, you keep a good attitude, and I'm going to rock and roll no matter who's in the corner.
Yeah.
Go time.
It's crazy to think. I think Track started a couple years or maybe a few years before Flow, but not much. They both, Flow was 06, Track might have been 04.
Yep.
Something like that. And to think of where they both came from, this little company that was doing some brackets and this little company where these guys were running around
Driving
video
in the
cameras. And then it's like, I don't know, media conglomerate is the right word, but we're a big media company nowadays. And to have you guys on board is awesome. And I don't know, you came here yesterday. You got there's 12, I think, track employees that come over at Flow Sports. Tell me about yesterday and what that was like.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I mean, number one, getting off the plane and it's 70 degrees. That's a good start. I mean, no doubt about it. But no, it's a real cool, it's just a cool atmosphere. Obviously with COVID, it's not a packed house, but just a cool vibe. You got that's how I would, I said to you yesterday, I said, I don't use this word a lot, but it's dope. The place is dope. That's what I would use. So yeah, real cool. I mean, people are great. Obviously, I've known a lot of you guys, for a long time. So it's, hey, like I said before, toe the line and get to work.
It's time to free Shane Sparks.
I think that was a Jacob Warner line.
I think it might have been.
I remember when that happened, my phone was blowing up. That's probably, 4 or 5 years ago. Jacob Warner. That's funny.
Good times. And I know there's a lot of, question around, like, what does this mean? Flow and track are one, or are they separate, or how does this? And I guess it's not 100% determined exactly how things will proceed. I think there's a somewhat of a game plan, and as we learn about the different pieces of the puzzle, we're going to fit them the best. But I guess to give fans what I think I understand as some big picture things anyways, is I think eventually, and there's so much that goes into the back ends of websites and this and that, I think eventually they will try to take Arena and the track software and make one product with the best features from both. And there's people that Arena sucks. There's people that says track sucks. There's people say I like this about this, I hate this about that, vice versa. So that's the goal, is to make one bracketing software with the best of both worlds to feed fans and coaches and everybody to follow tournaments. And I think, again, I'm not making all the decisions. I'm not making hardly any of these decisions.
Your jersey's hanging from the rafters.
That's true. But I think that they're also, we want to, again, I don't know if this is 6 months, 2-3 years down the road, but have one place for brackets, and whether it's the same or a different place, but a subscription that gets you all the major wrestling tournaments you want to see. So it's not like, okay, I got to get the subscription for this. I got to buy the pay-per-views here. So, so many different working parts, and so many things could change. But those are the two things I believe to be true, and that will be big picture items of how these things are going to operate moving forward. And then beyond that, we're going to figure it out. But the good thing is we're on the same team. You're here right now. You're in the freaking office.
Yeah,
2 years ago, who would have thought
studio. This? Exactly. But again, that's why life is fun. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. Again, it's the old cliche stuff, but you make the most of every day. I always tell my kids four words: be kind, be normal. That's all you got to do. Be kind, be normal. Your life will be fine. You'll be fine. If you're not those things, it could be challenging. Right?
Anything's possible. Yeah. And I think, between the FloWrestling guys and I'm talking content guys, right? And you and Andy and Kyle and the 6 or 8 of us, you guys present new and different skills, so I think we're complementing each other and going to be able to grow and expand the content offerings and the types.
It's a good mix of personalities, I would say. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Two of the best. Am I right?
But I do think you said, like you said before, you take the, you take the best of this, take the best of that, you move it together, and you have something better. So, yeah, should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a ride just to get to
What's
this point.
what's been your favorite part, Mark? Because you've been here, 10 years, over 10?
I'm going on 13.
What's been your favorite part watching this company evolve?
Oh, God. This is like asking me a big question after a match, Shane. Yeah. I thought you wanted like a hard-hitting answer. I could like...
Okay, so I'll give you... I'll
you feel what I'm saying? That's like a 30-minute answer.
What's the worst whooping you've ever taken?
Oh, God. Worst whooping I ever taken. A quick one that comes to mind is my sophomore year. Cody Sanderson teched me.
Oh, man. Okay.
That was bad. I think I got teched one other time in college. I never got pinned, but no, just like when you just get your ass whooped and you walk off the mat. You know what it is actually? It wasn't a match. It was a practice. The way I felt, between my junior and senior year of college, we went out to Colorado Springs to train for like a week or something, and it was a national team camp. And I had wrestled with Guerrero, and I had wrestled with Teague Moore, and I can't, but a bunch of other studs.
Okay. And
then the very last practice, we were gonna practice, shower, get in the car, and drive back to Missouri. Sammy Henson's there. I'm like, holy shit, Sammy Henson. I'm going tapping anybody I can. It's like, hey, you want to work out? Trying to work out with the best guys. I'm like, hey, I'm Mark. He's like, I'm Sammy. I'm like, no kidding. You want to practice today? Sure, okay, yeah. So we drill and maybe do some situations or whatever. They're like, all right, get a drink and then come back. You're gonna have a 4 and then a 6 and then a 12-minute go with your partner. And I was like, Sammy Henson?
Good time to get the flu. Right
yeah.
There. Good time to get the flu.
He beat me so bad, like not just scored a lot of points, which he did, but like just punished me. And it made me, I'm a fifth year. It started every year, and I wasn't a world beater. I wasn't an All-American, but I could hang with some really good guys. No, he made me. I remember he beat me so bad that we showered and we're getting in the car. We're driving back to Missouri, and it was like a Trailblazer or something. So there's 2 guys in the front and 2 or 3 guys in the middle, and then all the luggage in the back. And I'm laying on the luggage, little guy, right? And we're driving, and I'm facing the back. We're going that way. And I vividly remember this, looking out the back and seeing the mountains as we're going away and just like questioning myself, like, should I even do this senior year? Like, I'm terrible.
It's such a humbling sport. I mean, if you want to get humbled, no matter who you are, you can find somebody. I mean, there's always a bigger bull, right?
Yeah.
No, there's always a bigger bull. Sammy Henson once, when I look at being a wrestling fan, he ruined my day. If I look back at being a wrestling fan, Sammy might have ruined my day more than anybody else did. You want this story quick?
I mean, let's.
Okay.
Are you a Stephen Amis guy? I don't know where you're gonna go.
Okay, so here's the deal. When I'm a sophomore in high school, my dad takes me to the Big Tens in Madison, 1992. Okay.
Okay.
To this day, I think it's the best Big Ten. Maybe it's because it was the first one, but it was.
You never forget. Never
forget the first one. But those Iowa teams, the match at 118 was Chad Zappital, Matt Hanutke. Matt Hanutke was a 4-time state champ from Pittsville, Wisconsin. I believe a 4-time All-American for the Badgers. But you had Zappital, Terry, Tom, Steiner. God. Tom Ryan was in that mix. Mark Ryland, John Ostendorp, Bart Schelsvig, and Kevin Randleman. It was nutso. It was nuts. To this day, I've never seen all hell break loose than I did. That would have been, I believe, Helixton at Ohio State. And was that Andy Ryan? Or no, not Andy. Andy Ryan was Wisconsin with Dan Gable. It was chaos.
What happened?
Schelsvig and Randleman, 1992. Just
bench clearing type thing?
It was heated. I'd have to go. I just remember sitting there, eyes are wide open. But that was the day, Chad Zappital. So I've gotten to meet so many people in this sport. I mean, I've gotten to meet the greats.
Yeah.
But my favorite guy I've never met, and I'm going to meet him. Okay. Chad Zappital went to Iowa, 118, and I remember Big Ten championships being, in the hallways of the barn, the old field house in Madison, historic. I mean, it's awesome. And I just remember looking at him, and there he is at his Iowa warm-up, bouncing around, and I just remember being probably 10 feet away. And I'm just staring at him, hoping to God he stares at me, probably thinking, who's this
Yeah.
16-year-old kid that weighs 100 pounds, 90 pounds, like staring at me. And that was the first day I saw Dan Gable too. And I remember just the you thought you were looking at God. I mean, you really did. But I fell in love with Chad Zaptel that day. He was my favorite guy, and he was a 3-time runner-up. He got beat by Jeff Prescott from Penn State, I believe, twice. And then I think I got my story straight here, but I believe it was his last crack at it, and he was wrestling Sammy Henson. And I remember I worked at the Dairy Queen. I worked at Dairy Queen in Ripon, Wisconsin, and I went to a movie. And in those days, we were talking about before, you didn't have instant access. You didn't know what was going on.
Right.
I remember getting to that Dairy Queen, making a beeline for where the Oshkosh Northwestern paper was going to be, and looking at the results. And I saw those results, and I was like, just ruined my day. So I got to interview Sammy at the World Championships in 2017 in Paris.
Yeah,
it was 2017.
Yeah,
and
Paris.
I remember looking at him, thinking about it. It's one of those stories where if somebody would have told me that day as a 16-year-old or whatever, fast forward close to 30 years, you'll be interviewing this Sammy Henson. I'd have been like, I don't know what the heck happens in my life, but it sounds pretty crazy. But every time I see Sammy Henson, it hurts. It hurts. Who is your favorite college wrestler growing up?
I didn't follow college wrestling. I mean,
Really?
I had an Iowa. How did you? I don't know. I was so big in Missouri high school wrestling.
Okay.
I had older brothers. I studied the state books. If you'd have taken me to the NCAAs when I was 10, I'd have done the same thing. But I didn't go to the NCAAs till I was in college.
Yeah, I didn't go
to
until 2011. What about, did you watch the national tournament on TV?
If I flipped through the channel and it was on, I specifically remember. What was it in '97? It was in Northern Iowa. McElravy beat Bono. I'm pretty sure that in overtime, I remember being at my house. We had some friends over on probably Friday night or something. We're just sitting there flipping. I'm like, oh, wow, wrestling. Cool. And we watched it. But it wasn't like, oh, next week it's on at 10. It wasn't.
Okay.
Right? It was like
I remember
flipping
just stumbling
through.
across it. I think
That's what I mean.
I think I don't remember the year. I'm going to say it was 91 if I had to guess, but again, would it be the 91-92 season or 90, whatever. But I remember flipping through the channels. The first match I ever saw on TV, I'll never forget it. And I just missed Zappatal. I think Zappatal went at 118, but the first match I ever remember watching, Jason Kelber and Terry Brands.
Ooh.
I had no idea who these guys are. I have no clue. I'm just going through the channels like, this looks awesome. I thought the broadcaster did a great job. And there they show Jason Kelber slapping the cradle on Terry Brands. Again, I have no clue who he is.
Uh-huh.
He's out there. And then I remember that they did this little segment between Tom and Terry and Tom's match, and they were talking about these two twins from Iowa that lived in the apartment, and they'd break stuff over each other, and they had to remove them. Again, if somebody would have told me at that time, like, you'll get to know these guys someday, I'd be like, you got to be kidding me. And then Tom Brands went out there and beat Alan Freed from Oklahoma State.
Oh, my gosh.
That was a great. Oh, I love those. Wrestling in the early 90s to me I just love it. I wish we could go back and replay that stuff.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a favorite college wrestler growing up, but the only ones I knew were like, I knew Mizzou. I had older family that went to Mizzou. I grew up 2 hours away. I knew who John Smith was. I knew who Gabe was. I had an Iowa hat because they were good at wrestling. But I probably knew. I did know who the Brands brothers were because I remember hearing stories about these guys that would play cards against each other and then go out back and get in a fist fight. Whether or not that was true, those are the stories you heard, right? And to the same thing you said, like, wow, I got to know these guys now, and
they're great guys.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I always say
I'm not gonna play cards with them.
I've joked with Terry about this before, and he laughed because people will ask me like, what are Tom and Terry like? And I'm like, how do you answer that question, right? So I came up with my answer is they're really awesome guys.
Yeah.
And when you throw a scoreboard around them, it gets intense. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah. I've heard, yeah, absolutely. Whether it's cards or wrestling.
Oh man, yeah, that was fun watching those Iowa teams in the early '90s. Those were fun teams to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. We're winding down at 12 o'clock. You probably got, I don't know, you guys have more meetings today? I don't know.
Got lunch with somebody at noon, I guess.
Lunch with somebody at noon. Yeah. You're just meeting the whole team. I got nothing.
Shaking some hands, rubbing some elbows, all that good stuff.
Fantastic. Well, I know we got the studio till noon, and Tyler's back here telling us we got to go. Tyler's
Probably
always-
like, shut this guy up. You started this. You
This
put the
thing.
quarter in.
Wow, I pulled the coin and cord wound it up. But that's going to do it. I'll give you the parting word, the final word before we leave, Shane.
Man, God, that's the big question. I would just say, I guess what I would say is, hey, if you have an opportunity to be in this sport, take advantage of it. But I have kids of my own. They don't wrestle, but they play other sports. But I just think you got to make it a good experience. And there's such a fine line there. But don't go crazy. If you think your 9-year-old is going to be a Division I wrestler, never tell them they can't. But don't have that be the expectation. And if I had to give any advice, that's what it would be. Because this sport is so much fun. It can do so much for you. But there's also, don't be crazy, right? That's it. I mean, that's my parting shot.
Don't be crazy. Words to live by from Shane Sparks. That's going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow with Jakara Winchester to talk Captain's Cup, among other things. And America's Cup starts tomorrow. Captain's Cup starts Saturday. Great week and weekend of wrestling for Shane Sparks. I'm Mark Bader. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow.